Good morning, gentlemen. We're holding on our 55th segment of Think Before You Speak, the laws of Shemirat Halashon with clarity, with a few stories. Leilu Nishmat, the Hafetz Chaim, Zechet Tzadik Lebracha, Leilu Nishmat, Luza Aliza Bat Henriette, and her children that passed in the fire, Ruach Hashem Tenichenam Began Eden. As well, it should be a great zechut for our Bnei Chabura to be zocheh through these halachot to tremendous beracha v'atzlacha ad b'lidai. As well, it should be a zechut for those in Klal Yisrael who need refuah shlema and yeshuot. And specifically, these halachot should be a great shmira and hatzlacha gedola for Chaim Davidom Nechayesar. Today's halachot titled Meetings at Weddings. Now, a lot of times over the years, guys go their own way, and they end up bumping into each other years later by weddings. And this is very common. You bump into an old classmate, someone who you haven't seen since high school. And right away the conversation begins and everyone starts to catch up with each other, over the last few decades. And it's funny how other people always come up in conversation. You start talking about, hey, whatever happened to that guy? And whatever happened to this guy? So you can imagine where here you're by a wedding and you're catching up with an old friend that you haven't seen in years, and you start talking about old classmates, and he mentions to you, by the way, remember Chaim as an example? Remember Chaim? Or remember Shlomo as an example, right? Remember Shlomo? And you say, yeah, whatever happened to Shlomo? Don't ask. What do you mean? Terrible. He over the years, didn't exactly pan out to be the Yerei Shamayim that we saw him to be in high school. He went a completely different direction. And it's a big shame. It's the way people talk. It's a big shame. It's a terrible thing. He's totally not the big Yerei Shamayim that we expected him to be from high school. Is he allowed to say that? Well, actually, in such a scenario where literally it's just conversation driven, there's no practical benefit to say that or to even bring that up in any which way. And therefore, even though we're talking here not just about things that are ben adam l'chavero, even things that are ben adam l'makom, a person and his religious standings. But if there's no practical benefit to mention about what happened to this person or the path that they're on, mentioning something like that about Shlomo is absolute Lashon Hara, and it's forbidden. And therefore, a person has to be very careful. A person is allowed to speak about people that are doing averot of ben adam lamakom if they know firsthand with their own eyes, and they watch that they repeatedly fell to these averot, and they're intentionally committing these averot. Yes, then he can mention that he knows for a fact that this person is going down the wrong path, if there's some sort of a practical benefit, like we've been speaking in the last classes. But if there's no practical benefit, then the greatest thing is silence. Like the great Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel said in Pirkei Avot, all my days I was raised amongst the rabbis, and I found nothing better than shtika, than silence. It's amazing. He was raised amongst the greatest rabbis of Israel. This is Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. And yet, what was the one thing he highlighted from being around the greatest of the great? The greatest thing I learned from them is that there's no trait better than silence. Thank you for listening.